the schools and how could we strengthen neighborhoods and strengthen families. And I saw that the work that some of these churches did more good for people in their communities than any government program could. In those same communities, I saw that no education policy, no matter how well crafted it is, no matter how well funded it is, can take the place of a parent's love and attention. And I also believe that since government is funded by you, that it has an obligation to be efficient and effective. And that's why we've eliminated dozens of programs that weren't working, announced hundreds of regulatory reforms to save businesses and taxpayers billions of dollars. We've put annual domestic spending on a path to become the smallest share of our economy since Eisenhower was in the White House, which is before I was born, much less you being born. I believe the free market is the greatest force for economic progress in human history. But here's the thing. I also agree with our first Republican president, a guy from my home state, a guy with a beard named Abraham Lincoln. And what Lincoln said was that through our government we should do together what we cannot do as well for ourselves. That's the definition of a smart government. And that's the reason why we have a strong military, to keep us safe, because I suppose each of us could just, grab whatever's around the house and try to defend our country, but we do better when we do it together. And we've got the best military in the history of the world, with the greatest men and women in uniform. We pay for that. That's why we have public schools to educate our children. If we didn't have public schools, there would still be some families who would do very well. They could afford private schools, or some would homeschool, but there'd be a lot of kids who would fall through the cracks. So we do that together. It's one of the reasons that we've laid down railroads and highways. We can't build a highway for ourselves. We got to get our neighbors and our friends to say, let's go build a road. That's why we supported the research and the technology that saved lives and created entire industries. The internet, GPS, all those things were created by us together, not by ourselves. It's the reason why we contribute to programs like Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and unemployment insurance. Because we understand that no matter how responsibly we live our lives, we know that eventually, we're going to get older. We know that at any point, one of us might face hard times or bad luck, or a crippling illness, or a layoff. And the idea that together we build this safety net, this base of support, that allows all of us to take risks and to try new things and maybe get a new job because we know that there's this base that we can rely on. So these investments in things like education and research and healthcare, they haven't been made as some grand scheme to redistribute wealth from one group to another. This is not some socialist dream. They have been made by Democrats and Republicans for generations because they benefit all of us and they lead to strong and durable economic growth. That's why we've made these investments. If you're here at FAU because you got financial aid, or a student loan, a scholarship, which which, by the way, was how I was able to help finance my college education. That's how Michelle got her college education. That doesn't just benefit you. It benefits whatever company might end up hiring you and profiting from your skills. If one of you goes on to become the next Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, or one of you discovers the next medical breakthrough, think about all the people whose lives will be changed for the better. We made an investment in you, we'll get a return on the investment. When we guarantee basic security for the elderly or the sick or those who are actively looking for work, that doesn't make us weak. What makes us weak is when fewer Americans can afford to buy the products that businesses are selling. When fewer people are willing to take risks and start their new business because if it doesn't work out, they worry about feeding their families. What drags our entire economy down is when the benefits of economic growth and productivity go only to the few, which is what's been happening for over a decade now. And the gap between those at the very, very top and everybody else keeps growing wider and wider and wider and wider. In this country, prosperity has never trickled down from the wealthy few. Prosperity has always come from the bottom up, from a strong and growing middle class. That's how a generation who went to college on the GI Bill, including my grandfather, helped build the most prosperous economy that the world has ever known. That's why a CEO like Henry Ford made a point to pay his workers enough money so that they could buy the cars that they were building. Because he understood, look, there's no point in me having all this and then nobody can buy my cars. I've got to pay my workers enough so that they buy the cars. And that, in turn, creates more business and more prosperity for everybody. This is not about a few people doing well. We want people to do well. That's great. But it's about giving everybody the chance to do well. That's the essence of America. That's what the American dream's about. That's why immigrants have come to our shores, because the idea was, you know what, it doesn't matter what your name is, what you look like. You can be named Obama. You can still make it if you try. And yet, we keep on having the same argument with folks who don't seem to understand how it is that America got built. And let me just say, I mean, the folks that we have political arguments with, they're Americans who love their country. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody.